I light another cigarette. The smoke rises slowly, like a ghost that refuses to leave. And in that moment between the spark and the inhale, I ask myself the same question the world keeps asking. Why do I keep doing what I know is killing me? They say knowledge is power. But if that's true, then why does awareness sometimes feel like a curse? Why does the hand that understands danger still tremble toward it? Maybe smoking isn't about nicotine at all. Maybe it's about escape, about control in a life that feels uncontrollable. Maybe it's about needing something familiar when everything else keeps changing. Every puff is both rebellion and surrender. It's self-care disguised as self-destruction. And deep down, every smoker knows. The cigarette isn't killing us fast. It's keeping us calm. One moment at a time. This is the smoker's paradox. The strange psychology of a mind that knows the truth but still seeks comfort in the lie. A ritual of fire, breath, and denial. A slow dance between guilt and relief. So let's go deeper, not to judge, but to understand. Because sometimes the most dangerous habits are the ones that feel like home. They think we smoke because it feels good. Because nicotine rushes through the veins, giving us that brief moment of calm. But they don't understand. The cigarette isn't a celebration. It's a confession. Every drag carries a whisper of something unhealed. The pain that has no language. The silence that has no listener. Finds its way into the smoke. You don't light a cigarette because you love life. You light it because life feels too heavy to hold with bare hands. For some, the cigarette is the pause between chaos and collapse. It's the ritual that slows the world down just enough to breathe. When your mind is a battlefield, even poison can feel like peace. You tell yourself, just one more. But you don't mean cigarette. You mean just one more reason to stay alive. They say addiction is weakness, but that's not true. Addiction is often a story of strength, twisted, wounded strength. It's the body's desperate attempt to comfort itself when the heart doesn't know how. The smoker doesn't chase pleasure. He's trying to escape pain. Because what if the cigarette isn't the real addiction? What if it's the moment of relief we can't live without? That sacred silence when the world disappears. And it's just you and your breath. No judgment. No noise. No past. No future. Addiction begins the moment pain finds a temporary home. And for many, that home is the smoke between their lips. It's where they go when words can't describe what hurts. When prayers feel unanswered. When the mind is tired of pretending it's okay. We call it self-destruction, but maybe it's self-preservation in disguise. Because not everyone has a safe place to cry, to scream, to rest. For some, the smoke becomes the shelter. The lighter becomes a small spark of control in a world where everything else feels uncontrollable. So, when you see a smoker, don't just see the cigarette. See the storm behind the calm. See the person who learned to survive by inhaling a little death each day. And maybe that's what makes this paradox so painfully human. We destroy ourselves, not because we want to die, but because, for a fleeting second, destruction feels like relief. People think smoking is chaos, a reckless act, a lack of discipline. But to the smoker, it's one of the few things that make sense. When life feels unpredictable, the cigarette becomes a ritual, a moment of order in a world that never stops spinning. Lighting it isn't random. It's deliberate, almost sacred. The flick of the lighter, the crackle of the flame, the inhale that steadies the heartbeat. It's choreography, a quiet rebellion against the noise. When everything else slips through your fingers, the smoke is something you can control. You decide when it starts, how long it lasts, and when it ends. In a universe where emotions disobey logic and people leave without warning, this ritual becomes a compass, a tiny, glowing moment of authority over your own chaos. For some, it starts as a habit, but habits, when repeated in pain, turn into anchors. The cigarette becomes the space between thoughts, the pause before the storm of emotion hits again. You might think the smoker is escaping reality, but sometimes they're organizing it, segmenting time, dividing the day into survivable portions. One cigarette after work, one before the meeting, one when the loneliness hits. It's their way of saying, I can still decide something. I can still choose. Every puff becomes a punctuation mark in the sentence of their day. An inhale means I'm holding on. An exhale means I'm letting go. It's a conversation they have with themselves. Quiet, unseen, deeply personal. The irony is sharp. The more control they seek through the ritual, the more control they lose to the ritual itself. The act that once symbolized freedom becomes a chain, wrapped delicately in smoke and memory. And yet, the ritual endures, because even illusionary control is better than none. When your world has been dictated by loss, anxiety, or expectations, you cling to the few things that listen when you speak, even if it's only the fire at the end of a cigarette. We humans have a strange way of worshiping what hurts us, not because we love pain, but because pain, when familiar, feels safer than uncertainty. The cigarette becomes not just an addiction, but a companion, a therapist, a confessional, a tiny god made of paper and ash. And so the paradox deepens. A person who lights up to find peace slowly burns away the very calm they were searching for. Because control, when built on illusion, always leaves behind smoke and silence. There's a strange ache that comes with awareness, the kind that doesn't scream, but whispers. You know what it's doing to you. You know what the smoke is carving into your lungs, what it's stealing from your tomorrows. And yet, your fingers still tremble toward the lighter like it's the only thing that understands. That's the cruel poetry of addiction. It doesn't hide the truth from you. It forces you to see it, to feel it, and still choose it. That choice, the one between survival and surrender, becomes your daily confession. People say, if you know it's bad, why don't you just stop? But they don't realize that sometimes what destroys you also sustains you. Not because it heals you, but because it holds you together while you learn how to heal. You see, every smoker carries a private wound. The cigarette isn't the disease, it's the symptom of something deeper. A memory, a loneliness, a heartbreak, something that never got the chance to be named. And when the pain feels too abstract to touch, the cigarette gives it shape. It becomes the bridge between emotion and expression. You can't always cry, or scream, or tell someone what's eating you alive. But you can smoke. And in that simple act, pain becomes manageable, visible, breathable, controlled. You know it's temporary. You know it's a lie. But for those few minutes, the lie feels merciful. It says, you're not broken beyond repair. You can still feel something. Maybe that's why quitting feels like losing a friend. Because you're not just letting go of nicotine. You're letting go of a coping mechanism that kept you alive through nights of silence and memories that refused to fade. It's tragic, yes, but also profoundly human. We all hold on to things that hurt us because they once held us when nothing else did. And to release them means facing the raw truth without the anesthesia. It's terrifying, but it's also transformation. The paradox is this. You don't quit when you hate the cigarette. You quit when you finally forgive yourself. When you no longer need the smoke to translate your pain. When you realize peace doesn't have to burn. So yes, the smoker knows the risk. They've memorized the warnings on the pack. But those words don't understand the storm in their chest. And until they learn to find stillness without smoke, they'll keep lighting small fires, not to die, but to remember they're still alive. Because sometimes healing doesn't begin with quitting. It begins with understanding why you started in the first place. There comes a night. It's quiet, darker than usual. You reach for the cigarette like you always do. But something feels different. The ritual still comforts you, the smoke still dances. But this time, you don't feel peace. You feel truth. You stare at the burning tip and realize, this isn't about nicotine. It never was. It's about everything you've tried to escape. The memories, the noise, the ache that never asked permission to stay. And for the first time, you don't light it to numb yourself. You light it to say goodbye. Addiction is never just about the body. It's about the soul's attempt to survive what the mind can't explain. But every act of destruction hides a longing for creation. Every puff, every burn, was your way of whispering, I'm still here. The paradox of the smoker isn't just that they know it kills them. It's that they've mistaken survival for surrender, thinking the smoke kept them alive, when all along, it only hid the flame within them. So when you finally put it out, not with guilt but with grace, you're not just quitting smoking. You're choosing to breathe again, to let the air taste new, to feel the pain without hiding it behind smoke and fire. And that's not weakness, that's resurrection. Because healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means reclaiming it, one breath at a time. So here's to the last cigarette. Not as an ending but as a beginning. A reminder that even ashes can teach you how to rise.